Close your eyes. Step into a quiet past where kitchens glow softly, meals unfold slowly, and every flavor honors the season. Let this gentle story guide you, soothing, patient, warm, as you drift toward rest. Your place at the medieval table is waiting. The morning breath of a medieval village. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing in a small medieval village. The morning light has just begun to peek over the thatched rooftops, spreading a soft mist over the uneven ground. Thin curls of smoke gently drift from low chimneys, mingling with the crisp morning air, carrying the mild scent of burning wood and freshly baked bread. The winding stone path remains damp, and the earth releases a faint, comforting aroma. Near a cottage, a young mother carefully stirs a pot of barley porridge, a simple but warm meal that has nourished generations. The mild, creamy scent of goat's milk gently fills the kitchen air. The sound of a pestle pounding rhythmically rises from the far end of the village, blending with the scattered crowing of roosters and the distant bleating of sheep. This is truly the morning breath of the countryside, the slow, steady rhythm of life awakening, gently unfolding under the pale mist. Picture a middle-aged man in coarse linen clothes, walking slowly while balancing buckets of water from the village well. Each step falls into the quiet rhythm of dawn, as the sun hides behind the misty hills. Inside a modest cottage kitchen, a young woman prepares the morning meal. Dense black bread, sheep's milk cheese, and a few dried apples from the previous autumn. She carefully sets them on a rustic wooden table, while a small hearth fire crackles softly, casting its gentle warmth into the dim room. The smell of smoldering wood mingles with rosemary and the crisp aroma of toasted bread, wrapping the scene in comfort and familiarity. This morning isn't marked by any loud bustle like modern cities. Instead, the medieval countryside is calm and unhurried, alive with familiar sounds. The faint clatter of wooden clogs on the earth, the whisper of wind through ancient trees, and a nearby brook gently trickling over moss-covered stones. Their breakfast is humble but nourishing enough for a hard day's labor ahead. A warm bowl of grain porridge, perhaps sweetened with precious honey if the previous year's harvest was kind. A slice of coarse, hard bread dipped in a light bone broth, or a piece of rustic cheese, lightly salty, creamy, evoking the simplicity and richness of rural life. Nearby, a blackened earthen pot simmers slowly over a glowing ember, filled with soaked dried beans and barley from the night before. Every meal mirrors the villager's life rhythm. Slow, careful, waste nothing, using only what nature has provided. In this small kitchen, nearly all utensils are made of wood or earthenware. The smooth-worn wooden spoons, a tarnished copper kettle, and a few clay bowls with simple but refined patterns all contribute to a harmonious scene, simple but evocative. You might even hear the soft stir of a spoon scraping the pot, the gentle clink reassuring in its consistency. Such moments almost let you feel the warmth of the fire, the gentle sounds wrapping around you and soothing your mind into a state of peaceful stillness. At the corner of the village, small cages holding chickens sway gently in the breeze, their clucking adding another layer to the peaceful dawn. An elder sits on a low wooden stool, sipping an herbal brew, feeling its warmth seep slowly into his hands as sunlight starts to peak above distant hills. Nearby, a small child has just woken up, padding barefoot over the cool, slightly damp earth, clutching a piece of dry bread, taking small sleepy bites, eyes half-lidded but peaceful. The scene is deeply familiar, quiet but filled with warmth, reflecting a community bound together. In this world, every grain of cereal, every slice of bread, every sip of water is a testament to labor, the seasons, and the tight bond between humanity and the natural world. No luxury, but neither lacking in joy. a quiet happiness found in every breath, in every bite, in every sip. Now picture yourself sitting at a rustic table, breaking a hard piece of black bread, dipping it slowly into a simple broth, listening to the faint crackle of the hearth fire. You can feel that same tranquility slowly seeping into your mind, the slow hum easing your thoughts, wrapping you gently in a timeless sense of connection to the past. As the sky brightens and the morning mist rises, this slow and steady rhythm continues, reminding us that medieval cuisine was never just about sustenance. It was about living in harmony with nature's quiet rhythms and cherishing the simplest pleasures of each breath. The weekly market fair, colors and flavors. As the serene morning passes, the sun rises higher, burning away the mist and drying the stone paths under gentle golden light. The entire village now slowly makes its way toward the heart of the community, the weekly market fair. Imagine yourself walking slowly toward a small open square, shaded by ancient, broad canopied trees. This is no bustling, chaotic market. Instead, it hums with a gentle, comforting murmur, soft greetings, the rustle of cloth and straw as vendors arrange goods, and the gentle clink of wooden coins exchanged by calloused hands. The air's filled with mingling aromas, rich but not overwhelming. The warm scent of fresh bread from the baker's stall, the tang of aged cheese, the sweetness of wild honey, the sharp, fresh bite of resin, and the green fragrance of dried herbs hanging from every awning. Each modest stall is neatly arranged beneath simple wooden frames and rough-spun cloth canopies. Baskets of carrots with bits of earth still clinging to them, shiny onions, crisp heads of cabbage, jugs of freshly ground mustard, small clay pots filled with coarse salt, nature's palate arrayed with humble pride in the slanting sunlight. The ground underfoot is strewn with dry straw, crunching softly beneath slow, deliberate footsteps. The voices of merchants and customers weave together in a low, steady murmur. Patient bargaining, measured discussion, part of the market's rhythm, as unhurried as the village itself. You might pause at a stall offering cured meats and dried fish, dark, smoky slabs of bacon, their fat catching the sunlight. Small, silvery fish, dried and strung together, carrying a faintly salty tang that speaks of distant harbors and patient preservation. The vendor, clad in a woolen tunic, speaks gently, hands practiced and steady as he carves thin samples for curious buyers. Nearby, a baker displays baskets of hearty breads, dense black rye loaves, sturdy barley rolls, fragrant honey cakes that appear only on special occasions. Next to them hang bundles of herbs, sage, rosemary, marjoram, dill, their clean, quiet fragrances seeming to cradle the entire marketplace in a sense of calm. One corner is devoted to exotic spices, a tiny but precious corner of this humble fare. Imagine a small, cleanly dressed trader standing before a spread of little clay jars, black peppercorns, nutmeg, cloves, treasures from lands far beyond the horizon. Just a pinch of these would transform a simple stew into something remarkable. Elsewhere, merchants offer sacks of grains, barley, oats, rye, the foundations of medieval sustenance. These grains will be carried home, ground, mixed, kneaded, and baked into dense loaves, rough but hearty, a companion to every villager's life. An old woman gently arranges rounds of soft cheese on a wooden board, carefully slicing thin wedges with her well-worn knife. The mild aroma of ripened milk floats gently in the air, not overpowering but warmly inviting. The soft sound of her knife tapping the wood blends into the market's peaceful murmur. From a distance, the deep, mellow toll of the church bell rolls across the square, a reminder that the day marches steadily on, even within this calm, deliberate rhythm. The villagers understand this tempo intuitively. No rush, no shouting. Each person moving at their own quiet pace, gathering what they need. You might stop at a stall selling mead, light, sweet honey wine stored in small wooden casks. The vendor pours a small portion into a simple clay cup, offering a taste. The flavor is delicate, resting lightly on the tongue. Floral notes of wild blossoms, warmth from summer's sun captured in each sip, soothing and rich. Every offering in the market reflects nature's cycles and the quiet preparation for the seasons ahead. Green vegetables abundant in summer, honey cakes richer in autumn, salt meats and dried herbs appearing as winter nears. Each stall is like a chapter in a patient, unfolding story of earth and sky. Amidst the murmur, scents, and measured footsteps, the entire square feels wrapped in a calming atmosphere. Though busier than the kitchen hearth at dawn, the market retains its patient cadence, a familiar rhythm that lets people slow down and savor each small transaction. And as the sun reaches its zenith, the market gradually empties. Villagers return to their cottages, carrying baskets of carefully chosen goods to prepare for their next meal. Simple, humble, but full of flavor and meaning, each item a quiet expression of connection to the land and its gifts. A commoner's everyday meal. After leaving the calm hum of the market, villagers quietly return home under the soft glow of the midday sun. The stone walls of humble cottages absorb the warmth, and inside, the kitchen air still holds lingering scents of bread baked in the morning and herbs drying near the hearth. Imagine stepping into this simple kitchen. The thatched roof bows low, clay walls smoothed by time, and dark wooden beams overhead bear the marks of long use. The faint scent of toasted bread still lingers, mingling with the soft herbal aroma from bunches of sage and rosemary hanging from hooks. The hearth, though smaller than that of the noble kitchens, is central, the heart of the home. A gentle ember burns steadily, sustaining warmth through bitter winters and providing the steady heat needed to nourish those who live here. The meal itself is unpretentious but thoughtful, every detail shaped by the land and the seasons. Picture a heavy wooden table, its surface worn smooth by generations of use, covered by a faded but clean cloth. The midday meal begins without hurry or fanfare, a quiet ritual conducted with care. A simple earthenware pot sits at the center, filled with a hearty stew of dried beans, turnips, onions, and perhaps a rare scrap of salted pork if fortune has smiled upon the household. The stew is thick, light brown in color, fragrant with long-cooked vegetables. Rich but never heavy. Slices of dense, dark bread rest nearby, rough, hard, and made from coarse flour, sometimes needing to be softened in the hot broth before eating. The quality of bread itself speaks volumes. The darker and denser it is, the humbler the home. There's also cheese, rustic, handmade from sheep's or goat's milk, perhaps a little crumbly, its saltiness gentle, the flavor evoking meadows and hard-won simplicity. You might hear the dull thud of a well-used knife slicing a wedge of cheese, or the soft crack as bread splits apart under weathered fingers. Every sound in this kitchen resonates gently, part of the slow, patient rhythm of a life closely tied to the soil and the seasons. The drink that accompanies the meal is modest, a weak ale or perhaps a simple herbal infusion, safer than well water and softly flavored, intended to soothe rather than to excite. As with everything in this life, the meal reflects the time of year. In summer, a few fresh greens from the small garden out back might grace the table, kale, leeks, or tender peas. In autumn, the meal grows heartier with root vegetables, apples, or pears. In winter, meals depend on what has been carefully stored: dry bread, aged cheese, salted beans. Sometimes butter appears, precious and painstakingly churned, pale yellow with a gentle aroma of milk and hay. A slow swipe of a knife across a coarse slice of bread brings quiet pleasure, creamy but delicate. Picture this peaceful scene: a man returning from the fields, settling onto a heavy stool before the fire, dipping a crust of bread into the warm stew and eating slowly. Beside him, a small child sucks on buttered fingers, eyes wide and curious, bathed in the amber light of the hearth. Though humble, this meal is full of meaning. It is the product of labor, the glue of family bonds, and a moment of quiet, simple enjoyment in a life shaped by toil. At the close of the meal, perhaps there is a small treat, a dried apple slice, or a precious spoonful of honey from the hive tended the previous summer. Each golden drop of honey feels like liquid sunlight, carefully stored in a small clay jar. This scene closes a chapter in the daily rhythm of medieval life, slow, sufficient in its own way, in harmony with nature's offerings. A sense of abundance that does not come from excess, but from careful appreciation of what one has. As the midday light begins to soften and the breeze gently stirs the curtain at the small window, this meal comes to a quiet close. The household's rhythm continues, steady and unhurried, just like the ever-glowing ember at the heart of the hearth. Noble hearth, sumptuous feasting. Let your mind drift from the simple cottages to a stone-paved road leading up to a grand hilltop castle. Its ancient stone walls rise high, enclosing an interior that feels quiet, yet heavy with opulence. Step inside the great hall where sunlight streams gently through stained glass windows, casting patches of soft color across tiled floors. Within this lofty space, a noble kitchen bustles, but not with haste. Every movement is measured, steady, patient. A vast hearth dominates the room. Thick logs crackle beneath iron spits, slowly turning large cuts of meat. The air carries layered scents, richly aromatic and warm. The smokiness of roasting pork, the sweetness of honey glaze, and the sharp, faraway fragrance of cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves intertwine delicately. Here, the cook is a master craftsman. Imagine his calm hand as he draws a sharp knife along the golden brown skin of a suckling pig, scoring it so that the rich fat bastes itself as it roasts. These are spices more precious than gold. Pepper from distant ports, cloves from the tropics, each brought here at great expense. In another corner, bakers prepare fine breads, loaves from white wheat flour, soft, airy, a rarity in this time. Butter-laden pastries, sweetened with honey. A tray of dried fruits is carefully arranged. Figs, dates, raisins, delicacies from warmer, far-off lands. The sounds of this kitchen are soft, yet rhythmic. Knives gliding cleanly, spoons stirring thick soups, the quiet clink of clay bowls, the faint rustle of linen. Even amid abundance, this space maintains the same unhurried cadence as the peasant's kitchen, steady and intentional. As the feast approaches, the castle hall itself is transformed. Long oak tables draped with fine linen, gleaming silver goblets and platters carefully arranged, every place set precisely. A procession of dishes arrives slowly and in order. First, a creamy mushroom soup served steaming hot. Next, roast meats, gleaming and succulent, alongside dishes of root vegetables, steeped in butter and herbs. Then breads, fruits, cheeses, and finally, delicate cakes drizzled with fragrant honey. Between courses, goblets are refilled with sweet mead, red wines from foreign vineyards, each sip enjoyed slowly, thoughtfully, as conversation flows softly around the room. Voices rise in a gentle murmur, polite discussion, tales shared over warm food, but always underpinned by restraint. No shouting, no rush. Each guest eats deliberately, savoring not just the taste, but the ritual itself. This table tells a story of wealth and connection. The spices speak of caravans crossing deserts, the fruits of sailors braving distant seas, the wine of vineyards tended far to the south. Yet, despite its grandeur, this noble meal mirrors the rhythm of the commoner's table, deliberate, slow, full of respect for the food, the occasion, and the company. Picture the end of this grand meal. As the final honeyed cakes are served, candlelight softens, casting golden pools across the hall. A final sip of wine is enjoyed. Quiet conversation lingers a little longer. The feast closes not in haste, but in thoughtful contentment. The gentle warmth of the hearth remains as the last guests rise from their seats, bellies full and spirits calmed. In this way, whether in the simplest cottage or the grandest hall, medieval dining follows the same unspoken rule: unhurried, seasonal, and mindful. A harmony between body and land, tradition and nature. The embers in the noble hearth fade just as they do in every village hearth. Another meal is done, and the rhythm continues. Slow, patient, comforting, waiting to resume again with tomorrow's fire. The silent art of the cook. As the feast winds down and voices soften to whispers, a quiet presence remains in the noble kitchen. The cook, the true guardian of flavor and tradition. Imagine him standing alone near the great stone hearth. The fire's reduced now to glowing coals, and in this hushed glow, he wipes his well-used knives with deliberate care. His eyes, thoughtful and calm, glance over wooden shelves lined with familiar tools. Ladles carved smooth by countless hands, iron pots blackened with age, simple bowls glazed by time. Medieval cooks, whether in castle or cottage, held profound practical wisdom, seldom chronicled in records, yet woven into every meal. They knew the temper of every ingredient, how a spring turnip differs from a winter one, the nuance between fresh and aged butter, the art of preserving a cut of meat through harsh months without losing its essence. Picture an elderly cook in a low-ceilinged, dim kitchen. All around him are the quiet tools of his trade: simple wooden spoons polished by use, iron knives with wooden handles shaped by grip and patience, clay pots darkened by decades of fire. On the walls hang plaited braids of garlic and onions, bundles of sage and rosemary, both seasoning and decoration, their soft, herbal perfume part of the very air of this humble room. His every motion is slow but purposeful. When he slices through a root vegetable, it is with care, each cut precise, as if honoring both plant and soil. When he lifts a ladle to stir the soup, he does so gently, coaxing flavor rather than rushing it, listening to the quiet whisper of the broth as it simmers. In the kitchen's shadows stand large stoneware jars, vessels of patient preservation. Within them, pickled cabbage, salted beans, and sour turnips. Each jar represents forethought, waiting for the day when fresh harvests no longer arrive and the cold presses against shuttered windows. In the castle kitchen, artistry meets ceremony. A noble cook must not only understand flavor, but composition. The plate is a canvas. Textures must harmonize. Colors must sing together softly. And even arrangement follows an unhurried ceremonial grace. Nearby, a young apprentice observes intently. His teacher speaks little, but imparts lessons through gesture. How thick a soup should cling to the spoon. How herbs must be crushed to release oils, but not bruised. How patience itself is the secret seasoning that cannot be taught quickly. Such kitchens are repositories of quiet knowledge. Rhythms passed hand to hand, not page to page. Seasons, textures, aromas, all observed deeply, internalized quietly, reproduced slowly and without haste. The same wisdom guides what must be stored. Great sacks of barley, oats, and rye wait in shadowed corners. Their muted hues reflect the landscape outside. Their promise is simple nourishment. Near them, great barrels of weak ale bubble softly, their gentle fermentation a song of time. As the cook pours a ladle of this mild drink into a rough cup, the faint fizz and aroma of malt and earth mingle softly with the other ambient sounds: the crackling coals, the occasional creak of wooden beams. At day's end, when every knife has been cleaned, every pot scoured, the cook finally takes his own seat by the fading fire. Before him rests a simple meal, a piece of hard bread softened in the last of the broth, a sliver of cheese, perhaps a single preserved apple slice. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is hurried. Everything is savored. In that moment of stillness, the flicker of firelight dancing across soot-darkened stone, the hush of the quieted kitchen, the cook embodies a truth woven into all medieval life, that the art of feeding is not just skill, but patience, respect, and deep understanding. Even here, in this space of toil, there is peace. The kitchen breathes in harmony with the seasons, its sounds and scents, part of the lullaby of daily life. And as the embers dim into gentle glow, the cook rises, wiping his hands, glancing once more across his domain, content that every tool is ready for another day, another meal, another slow and careful rhythm. Seasonal rhythm, harvest, and weather. As the cook's day ends and the hearth cools, let us step back and take in the larger cycle that governs every medieval kitchen, the eternal rhythm of the seasons. In the medieval world, there is no abundance without nature's blessing, no exotic convenience, no fresh produce out of season. Every flavor, every meal, every act of preservation is an act of harmony with the earth's gentle but relentless turning. Spring arrives as a quiet resurrection. After the harshness of winter, tender greens emerge from thawed soil, curly kale, young leeks, tiny turnips, their leaves still glistening with dew. These precious signs of renewal find their way quickly into kitchens, into light broths gently simmered with herbs dried the previous year. The air itself seems fragrant with fresh growth. Eggs, too, become plentiful once more, symbols of new life and fertility. Picture the quiet crack of a shell against the rim of a wooden bowl, the soft whisk of a spoon stirring a simple, nourishing meal. Everything in spring is gentle, delicate, a careful encouragement back into life. Summer follows with a full embrace. The village garden flourishes. Carrots, peas, broad beans, cabbages bursting with firm green leaves. Berries appear. Raspberries, strawberries, blackberries. Their sweetness a brief and treasured luxury. But summer is also a time of quiet preparation. In the heat of long afternoons, herbs are carefully gathered and hung to dry, their soft fragrance filling kitchens and storage rooms alike. Vegetables are sliced thin and laid out to cure, sun and wind removing their moisture so they may keep through the cold to come. Imagine a cook in this season, slicing cucumbers and carrots with rhythmic precision, laying them gently into earthenware crocks of brine, the soft splash of water, the hiss of salt scattering into the jars. These are the small, steady sounds of patience. Autumn brings the grandest harvest of all, the final, full-hearted gift of nature before rest begins again. Baskets overflow with apples, pears, plums, chestnuts. These fruits will be carefully stored in cool pantries, wrapped in straw, lined up on shelves, a quiet promise of sweetness to brighten dark winter days. In castle kitchens, autumn is the season of abundance and foresight. Meats are salted and hung, wine and ale sealed in barrels, cabbages layered in brine, root cellars carefully stocked. And then, winter, the season of scarcity, of endurance. The kitchen becomes a place of protection, of creativity, born from limitation. Each meal a reminder of summer's preparation. Picture this quiet scene. A long, dark evening with wind brushing coldly against shuttered windows. The cook stirs a pot slowly, its contents simple. Dried beans, a scrap of salted pork, pickled cabbage from autumn's labor. The fire crackles gently, the glow softening every shadow in the humble kitchen. Bread grows harder as winter deepens. Thick, dark loaves, sliced with care and softened in hot broth. Cheese matures and sharpens, the rind hardened but the center still offering creamy sustenance. A spoon dipped into stew, a knife carving carefully into dense bread, a cup of mild ale poured gently. These actions speak of dignity and rhythm, even in the hardest times. The cook moves with the same patience, pulling pickled greens from their cool resting place, selecting carefully which stores to use and which to keep. For winter is long, and every choice must respect the rhythm of the land. Throughout all these seasons, the pace is constant, deliberate, quiet, careful. There is no rushing nature, no forcing abundance. The kitchen accepts what the land provides gently, gratefully. This patient cycle of harvest, preparation, and preservation shapes not only the food, but the people, encouraging endurance, humility, and appreciation for even the simplest pleasures. As winter's night deepens, the kitchen glows quietly with the embers' light, reflecting the enduring truth of medieval life, that to eat is to accept one's place in time and season, to honor each gift, to respect every cycle. And when morning comes again, the hearth will be rekindled, ingredients gathered thoughtfully, meals prepared slowly. And so, the rhythm continues, measured, dependable, soothing. Scarcity and wartime meals. When war looms or the harvest fails, the slow and steady rhythm of medieval life persists, but it becomes quieter, thinner, shaped by scarcity. Meals that once offered gentle comfort now reflect endurance, adaptability, and restraint. Imagine a gray, overcast morning in a village near the borderlands, where fields lie untended and storehouses near empty. The wind sighs softly through bare branches as villagers move with solemn care, gathering wild roots and bitter greens where once crops thrived. In the kitchen, familiar gestures remain, the cook's steady knife, the soft clatter of a spoon, but ingredients are meager. A simple pot of thin broth simmers on the hearth. Water, a few wilted herbs, perhaps a solitary onion or turnip. A rare pinch of salt is added with reverence, stretched to flavor what little can be gathered. The soft scrape of an old knife against a shriveled root, the faint hiss of boiling water, and the gentle creak of a wooden spoon stirring slowly. All these sounds echo a patience, tested but not broken. Meals during such times are reduced, modest. A single hard crust of bread is softened in watery soup. A handful of foraged leaves fills a bowl. Even so, the meal is shared with care, eaten slowly, as if prolonging not only sustenance, but also dignity. In noble kitchens, scarcity also makes itself known. The grand platters shrink, bread turns darker and denser as wheat flour is replaced by barley or rye. Richly spiced broths become simpler vegetable stews. Yet still, ritual and decorum are maintained. Linen cloths remain clean, goblets polished, courses served deliberately, each gesture carrying the weight of continuity. Even amid hardship, the cook's creativity endures. Weeds and wild herbs, once ignored, are now discovered anew. Acorn meal is ground into coarse flour, fashioned into flat cakes cooked slowly on griddles. Cabbage leaves are boiled tender in salted water, filling the air with a plain but soothing aroma. Picture this scene as night descends. A family gathered close around a humble hearth, quietly dipping hard bread into weak broth. No one speaks much, conserving not only food, but breath itself. Yet a quiet unity lingers, a resilience passed from hand to hand. The castle kitchen likewise adjusts its pace. The cook studies each store, choosing carefully what to use and what to hold back. No haste here, no panic. Only the same measured deliberation that has always governed this kitchen, now sharpened by scarcity. Each spoonful matters. Each slice of bread carries meaning. The warmth of a single bowl of stew is more than sustenance. It is a reminder that life continues, even in lean times. When the meal is done, empty bowls are washed in cold water and set carefully on their shelf. The hearth is tended with respect, coaxing the last warmth from fading coals, as if savoring even fire itself. The kitchen falls into quiet once more, but its rhythm remains. Even in hunger, the gestures endure, slow, thoughtful, gentle. There is no rush, no noise, only the quiet patience of survival. This is the hidden grace of medieval scarcity, a deep, quiet understanding that food is precious not because of its abundance, but because of the effort, care, and respect that surrounds it. And so, as winds rise outside and darkness gathers, the kitchen holds its steady beat, a beat not silenced by war or famine, but softened, drawn inward, a beat that sustains hope, that carries families and communities through until spring's first tender shoots reappear and nature's gifts return once again. Spices and journeys of flavor. Now let your thoughts drift to a quiet corner of the medieval kitchen, where rows of clay jars line a heavy wooden shelf. Small, unassuming, these jars contain wonders from distant lands, tiny treasures that carry stories of trade, ambition, and longing. Gently open one jar, and a soft fragrance rises. Warm, peppery, slightly sweet, the scent of ground nutmeg. Another jar reveals dark, knobby cloves, their aroma deeper, more complex. A third jar holds black peppercorns, each bead a fragment of faraway soil. In the medieval world, spices are not just flavors. They are echoes of distant journeys, symbols of wealth, prestige, and curiosity. A handful of pepper, a pinch of cinnamon. These are not used lightly. They arrive after arduous journeys, caravans crossing vast deserts, ships braving treacherous seas, merchants risking fortunes and lives. Imagine a merchant from far-off lands, his robe heavy with dust, carefully presenting a small pouch of cloves to a noble's steward. Within that pouch is not only spice, but a connection to an invisible web that spans continents, a web felt even in the quietest kitchens. Picture the cook's hand, deliberate, patient, reaching for a pinch of pepper, grinding it slowly with a mortar and pestle. The soft rasp of stone against seed becomes part of the kitchen's gentle symphony, no louder than the murmur of water over river stones. Salt, too, holds quiet significance, not merely seasoning but preservation itself. Crystals harvested from coastal marshes or deep mines gleam in clay pots, each grain precious. A careful sprinkle over a pot of stew not only brightens flavor, but honors countless unseen hands who labored to deliver it here. Salt preserves meat for winter, binds cabbage into sauerkraut, transforms cucumbers into pickles. Small, patient alchemies that stretch abundance into endurance. In noble kitchens, the language of spices is fluent. Cooks instinctively know the sharp warmth of ginger, the smooth heat of cinnamon, the floral note of saffron. Each spice is measured carefully, thoughtfully layered, never hurried. Even sugar, a rare treasure, appears here, coarse and brown, fragrant with hints of molasses and faraway cane fields. A spoonful might enrich a simple tart, dust a honey cake, or sweeten mead for a celebration. Yet even in peasant kitchens where spices are rare, their occasional presence marks special moments, a wedding, a festival, a visit from distant kin. A dash of spice becomes an offering of care, a reminder that the wide world, vast and unknown, sometimes reaches gently into this small, familiar space. You can hear the soft clink of jars being opened and closed, the faint tap of a spoon stirring aromatic broth. the almost imperceptible sigh as fragrant steam rises. These sounds and scents weave themselves into the daily rhythm of medieval life, quiet accents of luxury and longing, grounding even the most ordinary meal in a sense of connection to something greater. In this way, spices become more than seasoning. They are symbols of patience and craft, reminders of the world beyond the village walls, and the tender care with which each meal is prepared, no matter how simple. As night falls and the cook gently replaces each jar on its shelf, the spice's aroma lingers faintly in the warm air. The lids are closed softly, the shelves wiped clean. In the fading light, the kitchen holds the memory of every journey these spices made, every desert crossed, every port visited, every hand that carried them here. A final stir of the spoon, a soft clatter of stone mortar returning to its place, a quiet sigh as the cook steps back and surveys his work. The rhythm complete, the cycle honored. Even the smallest pinch of spice adds depth to not just a dish, but to a life lived deliberately, season by season, breath by breath. Cuisine, faith, and festivals. As days pass quietly, there are times when the medieval kitchen becomes a place not only of sustenance, but of ritual, when food transcends nourishment and becomes intertwined with faith, celebration, and shared community spirit. Imagine the village square on a feast day, framed by gently swaying garlands of dried herbs, with wreaths woven from laurel, rosemary, and wildflowers. Church bells toll slowly, their deep, mellow tones rolling softly across fields and rooftops, inviting everyone to gather. In homes and halls alike, tables are laid with care, rough-hewn wooden planks covered in humble cloths, simple bowls arranged thoughtfully, plates bearing the best a household can offer. A loaf of white bread, rare and precious, is placed at the center, flanked by bowls of hearty bean stew, fresh garden vegetables, and wedges of cheese saved from earlier in the season. The feast begins not with haste, but with silence. Heads bowed, a murmured prayer of gratitude rising gently into the quiet air. The pause before the first bite is deliberate, a space where time seems to slow further still, allowing reflection and reverence. Picture family and neighbors seated close together, their faces illuminated by the golden flicker of beeswax candles. Bread is not cut, but torn carefully by hand, a gesture of humility, a quiet echo of sacred traditions. Outside, the breeze carries the soft fragrance of herbs, blending with faint aromas of baked goods and mead. Nearby, children's laughter drifts through the air, but even their joy feels gentle, measured, never raucous. Festive meals bring rare pleasures to even the simplest kitchen. Honey cakes, almond tarts, dried fruits folded into dense pastries. Wooden molds shape these treats into birds, fish, flowers, each a small artistic gesture, carefully pressed and lifted free. Listen closely to the subtle sounds of this preparation. The delicate thud of dough meeting the wooden table, the scrape of a blunt knife trimming edges, the quiet sigh as a finished cake is set gently on a clay dish. On fasting days, meals reflect humility and simplicity. Dark rye bread, boiled greens, a plain fish cooked slowly over glowing embers. Even in their plainness, these meals carry dignity, mindful acts that mirror both devotion and discipline. In the quiet kitchens of monasteries, monks prepare meals in much the same way. Picture a gray-robed figure in a stone-walled kitchen, his movements patient and precise as he peels carrots, washes leeks, gently stirs a pot of vegetable broth. No hurry, no waste. Every action imbued with calm respect. In noble halls, feast days are lavish, yet anchored in ritual. A roasted goose adorned with sprigs of rosemary, rich wine poured into polished silver goblets, bowls of fruits, nuts, and sweets arranged meticulously, yet always preceded by a prayer, always eaten with deliberate grace. Food, faith, and celebration are inseparable. The medieval kitchen becomes a sacred space during these moments. Each dish not merely prepared, but offered. Every spoonful, every bite carries layers of meaning. As night deepens, the feast gradually ebbs. The last slices of honey cake are shared quietly. The final sips of wine linger thoughtfully on the tongue. Candles burn lower, casting long, soft shadows across worn wooden beams. In the stillness that follows, the cook clears the table with slow, careful movements, preserving the atmosphere of reverence that lingers even after the meal's end. Each bowl and platter is washed gently, set to dry in the fading candlelight. And as the last ember fades and silence fully returns, the kitchen breathes a deep, peaceful sigh. A sigh that carries within it the echoes of prayer, celebration, and the quiet, enduring rhythm of a life lived in harmony with season, faith, and community. Late night in the dying hearth. As the day quietly draws to a close and moonlight softly bathes the rooftops and fields, the hearth, whether in a humble cottage or a grand hall, remains the single point of warmth, the final glow before night's full stillness. Imagine yourself sitting in that dim kitchen, where the last embers flicker faintly, their reddish glow painting long shadows on soot-darkened walls. The aroma of burnt wood lingers gently in the air, mingling with faint traces of herbs and bread baked many hours before. On the table, a simple oil lamp sputters quietly, its flame dancing with soft uncertainty as it nears the end of its wick. Next to it sits a clay jug of water, drawn that morning from the cool village well, now still and chilled by evening air. A crust of bread, perhaps left untouched, rests patiently on a wooden plate, a small reminder that nothing goes to waste. In this moment, the cook, whether a weary villager or a practiced steward of a noble household, moves carefully, gathering tools with deliberate calm. Each knife is wiped slowly, each spoon placed gently back on its hook. His hands, roughened by years of labor and marked by heat and time, work without urgency. He pauses, his gaze lingering over the dying fire, the warm coals holding within them the memory of every meal prepared that day. Even now, long after the last bowl has been cleared and the final guest has departed, the kitchen breathes quietly, a space of peace and gentle closure. This space, so often alive with motion, is now still, its sounds softened to a mere whisper. The faint sigh of wind through the window's narrow crack, the occasional creak of old wood, the subtle shift of a cooling pot. Here, even noble and common kitchens are alike. The rituals are universal. Tidying the tools, tending the fire's last warmth, preparing the space for sleep. There is no rush, no clamor, only a calm acknowledgement that today's work is done, and tomorrow's will come soon enough. Picture the cook's final act, sitting briefly on a low stool, savoring one last sip from a cup of mild ale, letting the quiet soak in. His eyes, perhaps tired but peaceful, reflect the gentle dance of emberlight. His breath matches the kitchen's slow rhythm, steady and content. The medieval kitchen, whether grand or humble, has always been more than a place to prepare food. It is the hearth of the home, the heart of life's rhythm, the keeper of warmth in the cold night and of comfort in the midst of life's uncertainties. As the final ember fades into ash and darkness gently takes the room, the rhythm persists, a steady, unhurried beat that has guided countless generations through labor, hunger, joy, and rest. Even in stillness, the kitchen holds promise. Tomorrow the fire will be lit again. Spoons will stir, knives will slice, herbs will be gathered, dough will rise, and meals will once more reflect the deliberate cadence of medieval life. In this quiet, timeless moment, You too can breathe in harmony with that rhythm. Slow, calming, continuous. No hurry, no worry, only peace. The medieval hearth rests now, wrapped in shadow and memory, ready for another day, and so, perhaps, should you. Now that our journey through medieval kitchens has gently unfolded and drawn to a close, let us pause in this quiet moment, where history's hum has softened into silence, where the last glow of the hearth has faded, and only peace remains. Imagine yourself still seated in that simple, time-worn kitchen. The walls around you bear the memories of countless meals, countless hands stirring pots, slicing bread, tending flames. The tools are now cleaned and set aside. The fire no longer crackles but rests in gentle ash, and the air itself is soft, holding the lingering fragrance of wood smoke, herbs, and freshly baked loaves. The wind outside moves quietly through narrow cracks, its cool breath a gentle counterpoint to the kitchen's fading warmth. Every creak of ancient wood, every subtle sound, feels like part of a lullaby, a song that speaks not of hurry or urgency, but of acceptance and quiet endurance. This was never just a story of food, but a story of life itself, a life lived close to earth, guided by the cycles of nature, marked by seasons and weather, faith and work, all paced gently and thoughtfully. Now, as this day draws to an end in your mind's eye, allow yourself to breathe a little deeper, a little slower. Feel your breath match the slow, calming tempo of medieval life. Steady, thoughtful, unhurried. With each breath, let your body grow heavy, your thoughts soften, and your mind drift gently towards sleep. The distant echoes of spoons stirring, knives slicing, fires crackling and fading, all become part of the stillness that surrounds you now. In this quiet kitchen of memory and imagination, there is no more work left to do tonight. Tomorrow will come, as it always has. Another fire will be lit, another loaf of bread will rise, another gentle rhythm will unfold. But for now, this is your time for rest. May this peaceful moment accompany you as you surrender to sleep. Slow, calm, deep. Sweet dreams.